the car of Matt Latino, making his pro stock car debut here this weekend, the son of Eric Latino. If you have been watching drag racing for the last couple of seasons, and Mike Dunn, we've watched him go up to the line with another car in the other lane for the very first time, but this is his very first round of eliminations. What would you be feeling as the driver?
Probably a lot of pressure and probably too much, and you got to, pressure is this thing that's in your head. Just get it out of your head. And usually what happens is you get in that car and you tighten down them belts, you fire that thing up, and then everything goes away. You just focus on the race. And Matt will figure that out if he hasn't already. It'll just come right to him, and you just go down and you make your best run, cut your best light, and the times are going to indicate who gets the win.
One of the unique aspects of this event is the chip draw that happens here. And for the drivers, as they go up and they pull their chips, they're not only pulling who their matchup is going to be, it's also when we're going to see them go out to the racetrack. Now, it is an invitation-only event. Top Fuel Funny Car and Pro Stock, of course, here on the property. Only 8 cars for Pro Stock, or for Top Fuel and for Funny Car. 16-car field for Pro Stock. All the qualifying sessions have already been completed, and it's that random chip draw that determines the elimination pairings as well as the run order. Ladder does not matter here, Mike Dunn.
Yeah, so that makes it very interesting. So right now the focus, like even if there was a ladder, is just to get that round win. And for Pro Stock, if you were here to watch the qualifying session, you kind of have an idea what you're going to look for. For those of you that missed it, shame on you. Watch cars do the burnout. So what happened, for those of you that didn't see, the track conditions were very tricky when the sun was out, and especially for the Pro Stock cars. If you take a look at the weather, it's warm out there, 84 degrees, a little more wind, pushing straight down the track. It'll be a bit of a headwind. That track temperature, 113 degrees already. Now for Pro Stock in the sessions, it generally was that right-hand lane on the start was the trickier side. Left side had a couple, but it was mostly that right-hand side, and it was at towards the beginning of the session. They couldn't get the cars to launch. So for David Quadra, he's going to have to really, and that team's going to have to really kind of figure that setup. I think they're going to have to maybe go on the soft side to get the thing to launch based on what has happened before, even after a great track prep. And then normally, about a quarter to halfway through the qualifying session, that lane would just get tight as anything out. Now, Matt Latino, he's got the better lane, at least off the starting line, based on qualifying. Hopefully it's all different, and maybe because of the information of what all the teams had, they're going to have a better idea how to get these things off the start. But I believe they're going to be a little bit on the safe side in both lanes just to get that launch, to try to get them down the track. Once they get that launch, they'll start running through the gears, and hopefully they got the power to get the win light.
This being the first matchup, there will be a lot of eyes watching to see what the racetrack can hold in this first pairing. Matt Latino driving for KB Titan Racing, Dave Connolly, Rob Downing. Over there they have a whole handful of cars that still to come in this 16-car field. You see there Fernando Quadra Sr., father and tuner for all 3 of the Quadra boys that have made it into eliminations. Let's get ready to go. Pro Stock, first pair.
Matt Latino had lane choice, and he took the left lane. I think that's going to be a theme for at least for the first round. Look at that, a pedal fest in Pro Stock. Who's gonna get it? See, it's wow.
David Quadra with just a little more experience, able to pedal it down to the finish line.
And I'll tell you what, and it really helps to have experience trying to pedal a Pro Stock car, because it's not like a field car where you just get off of it and then try to either ease back in it or stab it, and it has another system that helps get the car to recover from smoke. You got to try to figure out how to get the thing in gear. I don't know. All kinds of things happen in a Pro Stock car. David obviously got his moving to the finish line, and that was all it took to get the win. Matt probably didn't want to screw anything up in the car. He probably figured, that's my first race. Let's just shut her down. We'll go back and look at all the data and say, okay, this is what happened. This is what we're going to try to fix next time. And obviously the main thing we're going to try to fix is not have it spin the tires at the head.
And for Matt Latino, he was just licensed earlier this year and only making runs here in testing and in qualifying. Happens in one of those and you shut the car off. So this was his very first time having to go out there and do that. He'll take that experience, and we will move forward to our next matchup. Jag Coughlin Jr., that Skag Power Equipment car. And then here's Dallas Glenn, the number 3 qualifier, also with lane choice. also choosing that left-hand lane.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that's going to be the theme because, I mean, both lanes had a little bit of trouble in qualifying, but the right lane was more prevalent. But I still believe that they're all going to try to go up there and soften that thing out. You take a look at Jed Coughlin. I think it was during Q3. Nobody was going down the track. He finally went up there in that lane that he's in. He doesn't have lane choice. He's in the right-hand lane. And what he did is they went out there and just really softened it up off the launch, lowered the launch RPM probably. Maybe took something out of it, a little more out of it than just that. And then he launched, had a 102.60 foot, went down and ran a I can't remember, about 661 or something, but it was the first car to go down the track in the right lane after about 3 or 4 pairs. So he's probably going to do similar. They might try to get a little more aggressive than a 102. I mean, it all depends on what the track looked like to them. But I'm sure that they are going to just try to run that thing soft off the starting line.
Dallas Glenn in the sunshine yesterday did have a hard time getting down the racetrack. Jed Coughlin, though, in the third qualifying session, was able to make a pretty solid pass. So we'll see if they can use that information, make it translate here to round 1. Great reaction time.
Look at both of them
drivers.
times.
Jed Coughlin, problem in the right-hand lane. He didn't find it.
Oh my.
657, 209 miles an hour for Jeggy.
And 006 and a 009 reaction times. Jed Coughlin had the advantage. How about Dallas Glenn go 009 and you're second off the starting line? That's just add an insult to injury. And obviously you saw Dallas have trouble early. Jed did soften it up, not as soft as the other day, or yesterday in Q3. He was one flat in 60 foot and went a 657 because that thing charged down on the other end pretty nicely at 209 miles per hour to get the win.
Jed Coughlin showing that you can get down the racetrack in that right-hand lane, and as long as you make the right tuning adjustments, it's going to be interesting to see what the rest of the field decisions they make in terms of lane choice. Let's get down to the top end with Tommy Johnson Jr.
David Quadro, that first round, it's not often we see a pedal fest in Pro Stock. What were you thinking during that?
So I shook. I knew I was late. Then I shook, so I said, oh, I'm done. But then I look over and I saw him that he shook also. So I immediately tried to grab a gear. I couldn't until I got to 5th gear, and it went. I was like, oh, great. Then I never looked back. I was just hoping for the best to turn on the wing light. So, and I did. So it felt awesome. I mean, it's my first time having that kind of a wing light, but man, a wing light is a wing light. So I feel great.
Well, he drew number 4. We're going to see who he races second round.
Still have lots of cars to roll, including this monster matchup between Erica Enders here in the red car. On the left-hand side of the racetrack, you've got Greg Anderson, who did have lane choice. Greg Anderson with the lane choice, choosing the left-hand side of the racetrack. Between the two of these drivers, 12 Pro Stock championships, each of them with 6 apiece. But for Erica, she did not go out for the final 2 sessions of qualifying, making the decision to continue to get better after being sick for the last week, and it's the first time back out behind the wheel.
Yeah, well, hopefully she's feeling better. We know she's got so many runs under her belt that, you know, she knows exactly what to do and a ton of experience. But so does Greg Anderson in the other lane. But we saw his teammate Dallas Glenn not be able to get down the track. Erica's teammate Jed Coughlin Jr. was able to. So that's a pretty good sign, but it's still, once you stage a car, it doesn't matter. You're just going to go up there and try to focus on doing your job, and hopefully everything works out.
Greg, first one to pull to the beam. For Greg Anderson.
Everybody's got great reaction time.
Got the number 1 on the side of the car there at the end, but Erica Enders, look at that speed. Greg Anderson with the win, 6:53.
Wow, reaction times in 014, 021. Both of them, nobody was late on that, and we're seeing some fantastic reaction times. Greg Anderson did have the advantage, and the run on the pass, 6:53. That was a nice run in that left-hand lane when you consider nobody else was really getting down. Take another look at it. It looks like, you know, I thought I could visibly see Greg lead, but that was just my old eyes not knowing what I was looking at. But Erica was right there, but then the horsepower down the track and the setup allowed Greg Anderson to get the win.
Before we get to the next pair, let's get back down to the top end with TJ.
Jed Coughlin Jr., you guys were going for each other's throats, sitting up in the seat. 006 to a 009?
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously, Dallas and I, a couple sportsmen and bracket racers at heart, and out here duking it out in pro stock. Number 6 qualifier and number 3 qualifier pull each other in the chip draw, and naturally we didn't have lane choice there. And typically the left lane has been better here in the last 20-something years. And, I was fortunate, Tim Freeman and Chase Freeman and the entire elite crew gave me a setup that would go A to B, and I can tell you it was definitely kind of sliding its way down the first 100 feet or so, and then power kicked in and we took off. So fortunate to get the win on to round 2.
And he will be number 2 for the next round.
Back to the starting line. We have the number 16 qualifier there in the right-hand lane, left-hand side of your screen. That's Chris McGahey. Up against the number 4 qualifier for this event, Aaron Stanfield.
Big separation in qualifying as far as positions go, but right now, as we've seen it, anything can happen. The left lane is obviously the lane of choice, but the first 2 runs were one out of the right-hand lane, and Jag was the one that first went down and showed what he could run after David Quadra had to win in a pedal fest. Aaron Stanfield, he struggled a little bit, but he's got it all together. He's a little, definitely more happy with his performance towards the end. And he's feeling pretty good about it. He's got that left-hand lane, but he knows it's not a gimme.
In the case of Chris McGahey, 18 pro stock cars were on the property here this weekend, and he had to wait out the 4th session of qualifying to see if he was going to be able to stay in with the run that he made in the 1st session of qualifying. So for him, it's been a little bit of an up and down weekend, working through some of the issues. His son Mason also out here racing this weekend. He made the field as well, so we'll still see him out here, but right now it's eliminations. Qualifying doesn't matter. It's all about going out there and seeing what they can get.
Pretty even off the start. Yep.
Off the line with that 37.
But look at that power from Aaron Stanfield. He goes out there and runs a 6:55. Nice run at 210 miles per hour to advance into the next round.
Elite Motorsports camp taking a good look at these numbers for Aaron Stanfield. We're going to have another Stanfield come up to the line, and just a couple of pairs. That's right, Greg Stanfield coming back out of retirement. While they pull around, let's get back to the top end with TJ.
Greg Anderson, this is the first competition of the year, and you pro stock guys are chopping the tree down.
Almost looks like we just took off where we finished off the end of last year. So it just feels good to be out here, Tommy, to be out here racing in a beautiful Florida sunshine and in front of Skag and all this great fans. You see those grandstands are packed, so it gets you jacked. You roll out there on the winter side, or after the burnout, you look at a grandstand, it's packed. How can you not put a smile on your face and say, man, go to give it everything you got? So that's what I did. That was obviously a great drag race. She's a hell of a competitor, but this time it was Hendrick's turn.
No matchups yet. Greg drew number 1.
Back to the starting line for the next matchup. The Quadra boys, the 2 brothers, Fernando Quadra Jr., Christian Quadra. Up to the line now, the number 11 and number 12 qualifier, so very similar performance. This could be a good race, Mike.
A sibling rivalry here, right? Brother David had to do that pedal fest. These guys are hoping that doesn't happen to them, right?
That's right. On paper, it is a sibling rivalry, but you talk to these boys and there is nothing that they would not do for one another. But it comes down to racing, and as long as the other one does well, I think they honestly, I think that they would both be happy. Fernando Quadra Jr., that you see right there, he is the oldest of the brothers. Now runs about 80% of the Corral family business. Younger brothers, the twins, Christian, who you see here in the right-hand lane, and David, who we already saw run. 2 of them, 25 years old, getting some more and more experience.
Yeah, Fernando, the higher qualified car, said I take that left lane. Like we said, that's going to be the case because we had a 980 60-foot in the previous pair with against a 1 flat. So it does seem like there might be a little bit more grip, at least initially. But we saw in qualifying that right-hand lane came out where they were both launching at the same and get pretty much the same 60-foot times at the end of the session. So that could play out here, and I guarantee you those pro stock tuners, they all know what's going on, and they know what the records were, so they're watching up here closely. to see what happens and going back and kind of changing the tune-up as it needed. Oh, red
Fernando
light.
goes red.
Wow, by 6 thousandths of a second. And look at Christian, he was 0-14. They were both ready. They were up on the wheel, as we say, but good run for Christian. He goes down the track. That's a 6:56 at 209 miles per hour. And look at that, same thing with Christian. He went 6:56.4, threw that away, or got the win, I'm sorry. Fernando had the red light with a 6:59, then a 6:56.4 for Christian. That would have been a good race had Fernando not red light at the starting line. Both of them were ready, though.
You saw Fernando Quadra Sr. with the phone out, recording the race, take it back to the pit, get the cars turned around and ready for the next round of elimination, where Fernando Quadra Jr. will face off against who? We don't know yet. That's the beauty of this event. We've got to pull the chips, and we'll see how they stack up when we get to the next round. See cars, the ready box. Interesting matchup here. We've got Troy Coughlin Jr. He has chosen the left-hand lane as the higher qualified driver. He qualified 9th. And then over there in the right-hand lane, the door of the car says Stephen Bell. It's actually Bo Butner that is behind the wheel of that car. Stephen was here earlier this week. He did the test sessions. Unfortunately, due to a family emergency, he had to leave and get back home. Bo Butner was on the property, was called up, got behind the wheel, made the qualifying runs, and made the field.
Made it look easy. Yeah, in qualifying, Troy Coughlin really struggled to get in the show. I don't think he got into the last session and ended up with lane choice against Bo Butner. Bo came out and just jumped in that car, went right down the track, was making consistent runs, but Troy was able to qualify a little bit higher than Troy. And you mentioned, you know, Stephen Bell. When he was here testing, I was watching. I was looking forward to seeing him race. Unfortunately, he had to go home for a situation with his mom, and we wish them well. But I like what that kid was doing in that car during testing, and I wanted to see. And he's raced other classes. He's not a rookie. He's a rookie in pro stock, but nothing else. And those drivers always seem to race the sportsman categories coming up. You know, super stock, top sportsman, whatever, factory X, which Stephen Bell has done a lot of. They always adjust well to these cars, and I was looking forward to seeing that happen. And we'll see him in the future. Troy Coughlin, he's up there on the starting line, going to try to get that thing down that racetrack, because he didn't look all that consistent in qualifying, but hopefully he found the combination on that last qualifying session.
He certainly never lost confidence in his team through the first 3 sessions of qualifying. Reaction time for Troy.
Never look back. Wow, wheels were up on the launch. 6:55 at 209 gets the win over a 660. And then once again, 980 60 foot in that left-hand lane, 983 actually, and then a 1008 in the right. So that left-hand lane has a little bit more bite at the starting line for now.
Let's get back down to TJ.
Christian Quadra, you got the round wind over your brother, and you reach into the bag and you pull out a chip, and you got to race your brother again next round.
I mean,
what
when
are
you
the
have
odds?
3 cars on the field, it's pretty common to get them, but I don't like it because I want them to win too. So it's tough, but well, I need to prepare for the next one and give it my best.
There's a lot of brotherly love down here on the top end.
What are the odds? You said it, Mike. Race your brother in round 1. Now you have to race your other brother in round number 2. Dinner's going to be interesting at the Quadra household.
Yeah, the good news is going to be a Quadra in the semifinals at least.
Back to the starting line. Mentioned another family connection here. Another father-son duo out here racing in the pro stock category. Now it is Mason McGahe's turn. Find him over in the right-hand lane. But this, Corey Reed, our number 1 qualifier, made his debut in pro stock last year after coming from pro stock motorcycle, also a former professional motocross racer, all 2-wheel experience. But he got behind the wheel 4 wheels, able to take it all the way to that #1 spot. It was the best Pro Stock run of his very short Pro Stock career.
I'll tell you what.
A lot of momentum.
And he looked good. We talk about the track conditions. He came up in Q3 qualifying session in that right-hand lane when everybody was having problems, just like they are now. He went out there right after Jeg's run, when Jeg went right around 660, getting it down the track soft. Corey come out there. He launched, had the left front wheel up for 100 feet, ran it down there and went a 652. And I thought, holy heck, where did that come from? And of course, then Greg Anderson comes right by in the same lane, does a 651. But then Corey comes back in the evening session, laid down that beautiful 649 pass. So Mason McGahe's going to have his work cut out for him.
It's Corey and Greg, the only 2 cars that were able to run in the 49s. It was tight back behind them. Those 2 were in a different league during qualifying. Who makes the move first? '17 for Corey Reed. Drives it to the stripe, a 654, 209 miles an hour. But Mason McGahey, a 59 over in the right-hand lane. Not a bad run either.
No, the right lane, I think, starting to come in just like it did in those qualifying sessions. 994 to a 990, 60 foot. They were both right there. Corey had a great light. 017 reaction time, had a pretty good advantage off of the starting line. And with that power, the way that car's running, usually you're not going to drive around them.
For Corey Reed, we heard him during the opening ceremonies. Also been a little under the weather this week, but coming into an event as the #1 qualifier, kicking off the 2025 racing season. The adrenaline's going to kick in at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to feel good. You know, it's you got to control that adrenaline. I mean, the excitement when you get out, obviously out of the car, when you win a race, there's nothing better. I mean, I can tell you that. But then reality hits when you got to go back and start working on the car again. So it brings you kind of back down to earth. And Corey's doing a great job, though. I mean, boy, does he look good this weekend.
Long tow back to the pits for Eric Enders, not advancing on to round #2 after taking home the win last season. But let's get back down to the top end.
Corey Reed, #1 qualifier. Go out there and make a great run first round. You do your draw. Who we racing now?
Jaggy. So that's going to be a tough run. But, you know, I'll give it my best. The car's running good. I hit the chip, I think, a couple times out there, actually. I don't know why. I don't know. Pull my head out of my ass, drive better. I think we'll be fine.
Still learning the lessons for Corey Reed, but always honest to see the caveman on the side of the cards. His team started calling him the caveman. You can look at him, see the facial hair, see why. Doesn't have a problem with it. Next pair out on the racetrack. Derek Kramer, the #8 qualifier. Again, taking that left-hand lane, right side of your screen. Greg Stanfield, back out of retirement. Hasn't run a full season of competition since 2012. Coming back out for a full year, racing with his family. We already saw Aaron Stanfield take home a win, round #1.
Well, as your final pair, this is your #8 qualifier, Derek Kramer. Greg Stanfield, the #13 qualifier with the 655. Derek with that 653 lane choice, like we predicted. You know, like we're geniuses, right? But Derek Kramer's taking the left-hand lane. But that right lane is just like we saw in qualifying. It's starting to come in towards the end of the session. So Greg's going to hope he can get a good launch and get a good reaction time, try to get around Derek.
Greg said he's been rusty. Let's see what his light is.
Both good lights.
26, not bad, but a 22 for Derek Kramer.
Oh, Derek's in trouble there.
Here comes Greg Stanfield, a 659, 209 miles an hour, getting the win in the right-hand lane right at the end of this Pro Stock session. We saw Mason McGahey run the same number the pair before.
Yeah, I think Derek just missed the combination. I think he let the clutch out and it just kind of spun the tires, and that was it. It had 114, 60 foot. Like I said, both drivers had good reaction times, and Derek, it looks like they just missed the setup.
Bunch of fans still back over in the pit area. So after everybody making it down through the first round of eliminations here in Pro Stock, now taking it down to 8 cars remaining. Again, it is a full 16-car field for the Pro Stock categories, but when we get to Nitro in just a moment, only 8 cars in both of those categories, so it's a quick race day in Top Fuel and Funny Car. All the fans are in the stands right now. Still a couple of people back watching the warm-ups and everybody getting ready to go in the Nitro camp, but these fans have been out here all day long. You pull in to the track and you already see that the parking lot is full. You know that the energy inside of this place is going to be electric, and it has been that so far early this afternoon.
We were talking about the linings being different. You had 4 wins in the left and 4 wins in the right. That's pretty even, but they were different. And I tell you what, it was fun to watch because I love the strategy. I love to see how they approach it, and it kind of went the way we thought. But we had some upsets and we had some good runs too.
The weather continues on like we're expecting it to, just like it has the last couple of days. When we get to the second round of eliminations, the track is still going to be hot. Teams that were able to make it down this session, this round, hopefully they'll be able to duplicate that performance when we get to round number 2. For right now, let's get back to the top end with TJ.
Greg Stanfield makes his Pro Stock return. You get your first round win. All the chips have been drawn, and your competitor next round, your son.
No way. You gotta be joking me. Oh boy. Well, we'll see what happens here. Aaron's a bad draw for me, but maybe we got a little gas in the tank where we can go get him.
Well, second round, we got 2 brothers racing each other and a father and son.
This is going to be exciting. It was the one matchup that Greg Stanfield said he did not want to have to go through unless it was going to be in the final round, but now they have to race each other in round number 2. While everybody gets settled and the track prep underway to getting ready for Nitro, we're going to step away, take a quick break. We will be back with Top Fuel right after this.
Speed, power, performance, and top-notch results on the turf and on the track. Skag Power Equipment is mowing down the competition. Built by hard-working Americans in state-of-the-art facilities, Skag machines are made to last. Don't get left behind. Visit your local Skag dealer to discover the Skag difference for yourself. Skag, simply the best.
We drive performance. We drive passion, a background in drag racing, and a future in all forms of motorsports. Because success in one sport isn't enough. Pushing ourselves to be the best. Climbing every mountain. Topping every peak. Until you see Fuel Tech everywhere.
was still NHRA, yeah. Her and Big Daddy were like the big ones that came.
Welcome back to Bradenton Motorsports Park, where you can see track prep still underway, getting ready for the first round of eliminations for the Nitro categories. Top Fuel will be first up here at Bradenton Motorsports Park. Fans are in the stands. Mike, take this long run down the racetrack. You've said it a couple of times this weekend, but the track has been in really good condition.
Yeah, I mean, it has, definitely. I mean, it's been tricky at times, but for the most part, you take the heat factor into it. You're always going to have troubles on any racetrack. You get up around 120-degree heat track temperatures, it's going to be a problem getting down any racetrack, and this track holds up pretty well here. There's a couple little issues, I wouldn't say issues, little small characteristics from differences from each lane for both Pro Stock and for Fuel. And, you know, the teams are going to have to deal with them. We'll talk about them a little bit more, and we'll see how this whole next session goes.
Take a look at the matchups that we're going to have here in the first round of eliminations. Again, the chip draw doesn't just tell you who you're going to be racing against. It also tells you which run you are going to be in terms of run order. Then based off of your qualifying time here in round number 1, that determines lane choice. So Brittany Force is the number 3 qualifier. Round number 1 has to face off against Doug Coletta, who is the number 2 qualifier. The next pair, Tony Stewart, barely made the field. He was the number 8, but he'll be up against Josh Hart, who is also in at the end, and number 7. Then we have Antron Brown, the champ, with the number 1 on the side of the car, bringing it out last night. The number 1 qualifier coming into this first round of eliminations up against Sean Reed, was able to qualify in number 6. And then the final matchup here in round number 1, Justin Ashley and Sean Langdon, 2 of the best levers in the business.
Tell you, it just doesn't seem fair that Brittany, number 3 qualifier, has to run Doug Coletta. This number 3 qualifier doesn't get lane choice, and then but then you look at the draw, it's pretty fair on the bottom. Justin versus Sean Langdon, number 4 versus number 5. That's the way it would be set up in a normal 8-card ladder. So, but it's kind of like you say, it's the luck of the draw, and Brittany wasn't very lucky on this one. But don't count her out.
Definitely don't count her out. That team has made some incredible passes through testing and into qualifying sessions. Teams, I mean, it's a great talking point coming into qualifying. The teams had already had the opportunity in very similar weather conditions to make up to 10 testing passes before we went into this event.
Yeah, and testing is a little bit different. You come out to, and every team has a little bit different strategy of what they're going to try to test. Some are making bigger changes, even though the rules don't allow for big changes, as many big changes as we used to have back in the early days. You still have some things you can do, camshaft designs, superchargers, a little bit. You can do some small things there. Clutch management, that's a big area, because my one crew chief, old crew chief Kim Vinny, used to say, we can make the horsepower. It's not that hard to make the horsepower in these fuel cars. Not this easy, but you know, a good crew chief can find and make 11,000 horsepower. Where the rubber meets the road literally is the clutch application to that rear tire, to the track surface, to get that thing to accelerate. That's the big difference, and that's where it separates, I think, I don't know, the really good crew chiefs and teams from the so-so ones. I don't want to put anybody down, but that's just the fact. The good ones are really good managing that 11,000 horsepower with the clutch and the tire and the gear and everything else. It's just, it's amazing to watch, because it's unbelievable. I mean, think about it, 11,000 horsepower, and they're accelerating that car, you know, from 0 to 330 miles per hour in like 3 3/4 seconds, just over 3.5 seconds for the case of dragsters.
You know, it wasn't that long ago it was that these cars were only rated at 10,000 horsepower, but that's because they couldn't measure any more than that. Let's go ahead and get back down to Courtney Enders with Victor Alvarez, who runs this track.
Sorry about that. We had a slight intermission in our interview there, but let's start this over. You have a new partner in this racetrack. Go ahead and explain the relationship and why.
So Garrett and I have been friends for years, and we've done a lot of things together behind the scenes. We always help each other out. It just got to a point with both facilities growing so much that it made a lot of sense to work together rather than in some ways working against each other. So it made a lot of sense. Obviously, I felt like he's one of the few people that could help me take this place to an even higher level than we already have. So it just made sense, and we have a great relationship. We'll continue to have a great relationship. We work really well together. I always have crazy ideas, and I needed someone that I could share them with and that would get excited with me and be like, hell yeah, let's do it, and he's the guy.
Now, cliche question, I always do this to you, but as we're standing here and we look around, no matter what kind of event is at this racetrack, the local community and those of you who flew in from everywhere, they always seem to show up and show out. Why?
I think they just see the amount of love that we put into this place, and they appreciate it and they support it. But the reason that we do it is because we have that support. Without everybody that's here in these stands and all the people that we get that support us week after week, month after month, we wouldn't be able to do any of this. So we love everyone that's here. We love what we do, and it shows, and they support us because of it. And I'm just excited.
All right, guys, Bradenton Motorsports Park, head guy in charge here, Victor Alvarez, thank you so much for letting us come play on your facility.
Of course, and we'll see you guys again in a couple weeks, World Series of Pro Mod.
And I know I'm going to be doing plenty more interviews with you, buddy. You love it.
It is a great facility, able to operate year-around. Lots and lots of cars make their way down this drag strip. While we get set for Nitro, we're going to step away, take a break, but we'll be back for Top Fuel right after this.
With that chain like a noose, you better not cut him loose, or you'll be singing the blues. You see that pain in his eye, something dark as a night. Hold on to your life, you better run and hide. Bad dog, loose off the chain, gonna get ready for the world of pain. God dang, he's back again. The storm is coming, prepare for the rain. The storm is coming, prepare for the rain. Shed that dirt on the track, and you never look back, no. You better hold on to what you got before we face the black. You see that pain in his eyes, something dark as the night. Hold on to your life, you better run and hide. Bad dog, loose off the chain, gonna get ready for the world of pain. God damn, he's back again. The storm is coming, prepare for the rain. Bad dog, loose off the chain, gonna get ready for the world of pain. God damn, he's back again. The storm is coming, prepare for the rain. The storm is coming, prepare for the rain. The storm is coming, prepare for the rain.
Welcome back to the Skag Power Equipment Pro Superstar Shootout, round number 1 of eliminations. Going to kick things off with Top Fuel as soon as this track prep is complete. But Mike, then you see the Top Fuel teams that went up to the line there, starting to get a taste for what they can expect once they roll the cars to the starting line.
Yeah, they're out there checking that rubber to see what it looks like at the head of the throttle. Now, the fuel cars are a little bit more forgiving on the launch. I think the best way to explain it is the window. Tuning window. It's easier to get a Top Fuel car actually to launch on a starting line that's a little bit maybe not so good as a Pro Stock. They have a much narrower window to where they have to hit that to get it to go down the racetrack, it seems like. Now the fuel cars are, once they get going down the racetrack, that clutch application, that's where it becomes very tricky, and you got to know where to be as a driver, and you got to know where the tune-up needs to be as a tuner.
Looking back into the pit area, that is the Top Fuel dragster of Doug Coletta, who will be in that first round, first pair matchup up against Brittany Force. While teams make their way to the staging lanes, let's take a look at what is a Top Fuel dragster.
Top Fuel dragsters, 11,000 horsepower, long wheelbase, nitro-burning, ground-shaking machines. In this class, you'll see champions like Doug Coletta, Antron Brown, and fan favorites like Brittany Force. In 2024, you saw me get to warm up Justin Ashley's Top Fuel dragster. Now, I don't know what it's like to drive one of these things, but just sitting in it while it's running was absolutely insane. I can't imagine the ride these guys go on.
Mike, during your driving career, you were able to compete and win behind the wheel of both the Top Fuel dragster as well as a nitro-powered funny car. What is the sensation of all of that horsepower like?
It's hard to explain. I mean, it's just so fast, it's unbelievable. And we were talking about this the other day, how much faster they're going now on the fuel cars than when I quit driving over 20 years ago. I mean, I went 449 at 331 on a quarter mile, and now, you know, our eighth mile, our 1,000-foot time on that run was a 382. I mean, that's like, you look at 382, you go, well, funny cars are quicker than that. and the thing is, so you do the math, 382, you know, Brittany's run 362, that's 0.2 of a second, so that's 429. But our 8th mile speed was 276 miles per hour, which was my fastest. Heck, they're run 296 to 299 miles an hour at the 8. So that would drop the time down even more. And so I said before, I can't even imagine. I mean, the difference from when I drove on the acceleration in my mind is like the difference between when I went to Irwindale Raceway with my 70 El Camino that ran 15 seconds in the quarter, and then the next week I got in my dad's funny car, fuel funny car, but he had it on alcohol. It ran about 780s, and I thought, oh man, that acceleration. I'm telling you, I think if I got in that car now, that acceleration early in the run, man, that would get your attention.
One of the competitors out here in Top Fuel is NASCAR Hall of Famer Tony Stewart, and he made that point after his first testing pass that, man, these will get your attention. Let's get down to Courtney.
On the planet with some of the coolest people. I have got Tony Stewart here. Tony, you are getting ready to go up for round 1 of eliminations. This is different. We're doing some outlaw stuff here. Chip draw. What does that do to the preparation of what you guys have been doing, testing, qualifying, and now it's just like throw your hands up?
Well, I wish we could say it changed something for us. We've not had a very good test down here the first 2.5 days, and qualifying wasn't much better. So barely got in the field, but just grateful that we get to be a part of this. This is a cool event for all of us in drag racing, so glad to be a part of it. Last year, I was a spectator because this was Leah's last event before getting pregnant and starting our family. So it's amazing how a year changes your perspective. We came down here and we've got our son Dominic, who today is 12 weeks old. So having him at the racetracks has been really, really cool. So it's if we can have as much fun with the race car as we're having with him, everything's going to be great.
Does that change mentality of who Tony Stewart is? Now you're getting in these machines going 330 some odd miles an hour, and your baby son's watching, and I mean, surely if genetics do their thing, he might be doing the same thing.
Yeah, I guess as frustrating as the week's been from the testing side and getting the car's performance where we want it, normally I would take that frustration home and to the bus or to the motorhome or the hotel and be frustrated all night and wake up frustrated and go, okay, hopefully we fix it today. And the great thing with having him at the racetrack is, you know, we'd be frustrated during the day and you know, you're scratching your head trying to figure out what you can do to help the guys, and but you get back to the motorhome and he's there and he just looks up at you and smiles, and it's like the rest of it doesn't matter at that point. It's like the clock stops, the car doesn't matter at that point, but at least it has given us a chance to you know, not just get in our head and get so frustrated with what's going on. It has not been a fun week driving the race car, but you know, today's a new day. The crew chiefs, it was really good to go back to the trailer this morning, and you know, they're finding things. There's at least justification for some of the things that are going wrong and why it's going wrong. So that's the first half of the equation, is being able to identify what it is. And once you do that, then you have the opportunity to fix it. But we're just hoping we can get ahead of it enough today to have a reasonable day today, and we'll just keep working forward.
Now, these are drag racing fans here. I know they know you from everywhere else, but you are a drag racer now. Why did you choose to come and spend your time over here in the drag racing world?
Well, you know, when Leah and I started dating during COVID, it was kind of a unique deal because all forms of motorsports had shut down. And so I started running my sprint car before NHRA started back up, and Leah went to a bunch of our races. And and learned a lot there. And then when NHRA started up, I started going to some of her races. And I'd been to some before, but had never really been engrossed with the race team. And being able to be in there and listen to her debrief with her crew chiefs and really be in the middle of the pit and see what's going on and ask questions with the guys, it was something that was really eye-opening. That everybody goes, well, how similar is it to anything else you've done? Everything I've done's kind of in one big bubble. Drag racing is like off on Fantasy Island. It is totally different than anything I've done. So you can imagine driving races that run for 3.5 hours, and now I'm running races that last 3.5 seconds. So it's drastically different.
So we can call you part-time now?
Yeah, I feel like a part-time driver because I don't drive very long during the day, but the parts that we do drive, it's pretty damn intense.
Thank you so much, Tony. You've got Josh Hart here coming up in just a few short minutes. Good luck, man. It's a whole new day. Forget all that.
Yeah, we're excited. We'll see what happens this first round, but just want to thank all the fans that came here. This is a big deal to all of us at Pro and all the drivers and teams that are here. We're excited to see all of you guys and appreciative you guys are spending your weekend with us. And we got a great facility to race at, and there's a lot of people that all these people that are putting this event on are not people that put events on. The people that are putting the events on this weekend are people that work on race teams, and that just shows you the effort that Pro put together to do this last year and this year. But we got great partners. We got Skag and Randy and his group here, obviously, that are a huge part of this, Johnson's Horsepower Garage. Just great people that want to put on a great event. So, Michelle Damagala, her husband's my co-crew chief, probably the hardest working person on this project the last 2 years, and we got to get her therapy sessions after this week's over. It's stressful. The first thing we do is send her for a massage. That's the first thing we do right out of the gate, but it just takes a lot of great people to do it, and for all you guys to come out and spend a day with us, that's makes us all feel really good about the hard work that everybody's put into this.
Thank you for taking time with us. I know it's intense time getting into round one of eliminations. Good luck, Tony. Y'all here for Tony Stewart.
Great to have Tony Stewart as part of the drag racing community. He's an incredible ambassador for all things motorsports. Take a look at the staging lanes. Cars starting to make their way with their teams, getting ready for round number 1 of Nitro. We'll step away, and we'll be back right after this.
Speed, power, performance, and top-notch results on the turf and on the track. Skag Power Equipment is mowing down the competition. Built by hard-working Americans in state-of-the-art facilities, Skag machines are made to last. Don't get left behind. Visit your local Skag dealer to discover the Skag difference for yourself. Skag, simply the best.
We drive performance. We drive passion, a background in drag racing, and a future in all forms of motorsports. Because success in one sport isn't enough. Pushing ourselves to be the best. Climbing every mountain. Topping every peak. Until you see Fuel Tech everywhere.
How is that going to change things?
That's a good thing. I mean, if you just get that track temperature down, I mean, 113 degrees during pro stock, that's a good amount of heat on that starting line. But, you know, they keep track of that. They'll look at it, and they have records of any type of condition to be in. Like I said, when it gets to 120, it gets pretty tough. I was in Australia one time, and the track temperature was like 142 or something. And I thought, there's no way we're going to go down. And they softened it up, and they went down there and ran a 482, which wasn't a bad run in the heat, you know, that type of heat. So they can, these crew chiefs are pretty amazing.
A lot of brain power down there at the starting line, back in the pit area as well. Looking to see how many cars now around that corner right in front of the Pro Stock pitch. You can see even more of the Top Fuel dragsters getting closer and closer to filing up these machines for our first round of eliminations. We're going to take a moment, step away, and we'll be right back.
For more than a decade, FTI has strived to become the leader in the aftermarket performance transmission and converter industry. We've joined forces with McLeod Driveline Components under the leadership of Top Fuel Funny Car pilot Paul Lee, and now have a larger distribution network, more resources, and more power. Come see us in the pits and ask how you can join the FTI family. It's not cheating, it is the competitive edge.
Welcome to Bernie's Speed Shop. Let's go for a ride. If you're looking for a hassle-free way to sell your car, bring it to Bernie's. We have an easy consignment process, and before you know it, you're going to be walking away check in hand. We inspect every car that we sell, so you can rest assured that only the best cars are in our showroom. So give us a call or check out our website and get your wheels running down the road today.
I'm Joe Cargo, and I am a flight follower for Kalitta Air. The schedule at Kalitta Air, we work 4 days on and 4 days off currently. It allows me to maintain work-life balance. That allows for time off outside of, just constantly being at work and being able to decompress. That's part of the reason I'm here, and it's definitely a major perk.
Now just minutes away from firing up the 11,000 horsepower machines that are the Top Fuel dragsters. But we've had a lot of action here this week, going back to qualifying and the 4 passes that were made by these professional organizations. Antron Brown, the reigning champion in the NHRA Top Fuel category, he had a scary moment, Mike, in the 3rd session of qualifying.
Yeah, I can tell you, I've been there before. When you get down towards the lights and you lift off that car and that right rear tire blows out, and it's a wild ride, but Antron did a great job to stop that car.
You see some dragsters getting down and
I
ready.
have
Let's
got
get
Eric
down to the
Enders
start line.
down here on the starting line. I have got Erica Enders down here on the starting line. Take 2. Erica Enders, we just saw a tough situation there, first round against Greg Anderson. We just talked back at the pit. You just said I ran good, light was good, just a tough draw.
Yeah, definitely a tough first round draw. That's kind of more so of a final round matchup there, but that's the luck of the chips and how they fall. But I just want to say I'm really proud of my team. We're down a number of key players, and Mark Ingersoll, Jake Harrison, and Robert, and Chase and Timmy have really stepped up to the plate. And I had one run in my car all weekend for qualifying, and they did a tremendous job with it. So it's the way the cookie crumbles today. But we got 6 elite cars going to the next round, and we're gonna go to battle.
Very quickly here, we've got to address it. Yesterday, missed a couple of qualifiers. In the 38 years I've known you, you've never missed anything.
I've never missed anything. I've been throwing up out the side of my car and not feeling good, but in 22 years of pro stock racing, never missed a round. And unfortunately, the higher-ups made the call yesterday and said I could be back in today. So here we are. I'm proud we did our job. I was 20 and shifted well, so that's all I have to give today.
All right, go back there and support that Team Elite.
Thank you.
Erica will now get the rest that she needs, but it is time to move over to Top Fuel. Our first pair that will come to the line will be the number 3 qualifier, Brittany Force. She did not have lane choice. Doug Coletta is the number 2 qualifier. He has put her in the right-hand lane.
And that's a little bit different than we saw in pro stock. So different things, you know, the different types of cars like different things on the racetrack. And for Doug Coletta, Alan Johnson, he is one of the best at managing that horsepower with that clutch application. He didn't invent the lockup clutch, but he invented a lot of the new things on it that make it work the way it does, that controls that horsepower, and it's one of the reasons why these cars have can accelerate through the middle of the racetrack the way they can. He's very good at David Grubnick on the other side with Brittany. He's also one of those guys, just really, he's a big thinker. You know, he's very, very intelligent, and he really thinks these things out, and he has a really good understanding, like all really good crew chiefs, of how the basic mechanical application of it and everything works on these Top Fuel dragsters.
Take a look at Antron Brown. He will be in the 3rd matchup that we'll see. Cars I can hear fired below the tower. Interesting matchup here.
Well, let's take a look at what happened yesterday. Left side of your screen, Antron on the Q3 pass. Just as he lifts off the throttle, the right rear tire blows. Does a great job of keeping that car straight. Brings it to a stop and go with some minimum damage to the chassis, but enough that they had to change it out. He brings the old faithful back in there, the car he won the championship last year, and that thing just blasted right down the dragster to #1 spot with that great 364 pass.
Here's a look at the car right now in the staging lanes. That is that same championship chassis. Burnouts already complete for our first pair of Top Fuel dragsters. Doug Coletta being backed up into his position, his crew chief, Alan Johnson. They were able to win a championship together. He is the defending Pro Superstar Shootout winner from just 1 year ago. Over on the other side of the racetrack, Brittany Force failed to qualify.
So I made a mistake. Doug Coletta is in the left-hand lane. Brittany's in the right. Our timing and scoring had it the opposite before they rolled up there, so they must have maybe made a little switch before they got up there. So just want to give you that little bit of information. So we'll see how this thing goes. So, and I do believe the left lane is preferable for the fuel cars too, just because of those slight bumps in the right-hand lane when it does get warm. When it's cool, the track is perfect. Either lane you can just fly down.
Away first to the 61st.
Oh, wow.
Identical at the 330, and Brittany Force able to drive around it to a 373, able to advance on to the 2nd round.
That was a pretty good race. I mean, Doug Coletta got off the starting line. I thought, okay, this looks pretty good. But boy, by the middle of the racetrack, here's the deal. Brittany was running 293 at the 8th. Doug was only 286, and that was where she was starting to make her march to get the win. Nice pass, good race.
Force needing some help getting to the end of the track. NHRA Safety Safari, a part of this event this season. They will help her get around. Let's take another look.
Doug's off first. You see Brittany there. She stuck that thing right down the middle of the racetrack and didn't have any problem. David did care about staying on the right side of that groove. She was right down dead center. That faster 8th mile speed was what allowed her to drive around a slight hole shot by Doug Coletta and get the win.
Looking out the window of our tower here, we're at a little bit of an angle to see if we have any lane swaps going on. The higher qualified driver in the chip draw matchups getting to pick their lane. The next pair that we have up, it'll be Josh Hart that has lane choice over Tony Stewart. So we watch down the top end of the racetrack as Brittany Force now has the canopy up, and we'll learn that she gets to go on to round number 2. who she's going to race up against? Well, she's going to have to draw a chip and find out.
I just can't get over that.
You go back to the starting line. You can see Josh Hart there, right-hand side of your screen. He is the higher qualified driver, and that team, they did choose that left-hand lane. Right-hand side of the racetrack, left side of your screen, that black car. Tony Stewart, great to hear him and his mentality coming into this season. He's mellowed and ready for a solid year, it seems like.
Yeah, Josh Hart got that lane choice by just 0.03 of a second. So these cars were pretty equal during qualifying, which is a good thing for both of them. I think we could possibly see a pretty good race here. Track conditions based on the first car looked pretty good. Right down the racetrack, had good numbers. Not great, but for the conditions, I think they were actually pretty good. So Tony Stewart, as you heard him talk about, he's been struggling all through testing. Josh Hart hasn't had a great test session. And Josh, I think, if I remember right, he won his very first race at Gainesville on top fuel car or something back in the day. I might be wrong, but I know he's very adapted to this car and has done a great job, behind the wheel. Tony Stewart, he can drive anything, including a top fuel dragster. We'll see how this plays out.
Tony Stewart and his team being led by his crew chief, Neil Strasbaugh, certainly still looking for some consistency. You see Neil there giving Tony the go-ahead. We've done everything we can do. It's all in your hands now. Tony says, everything else I've ever raced, it's 70% me, 30% the team. He said, here, it's all about what he can do. And Josh Hart able to get off of the line first and get it to the stripe first at 3:72. Josh Hart will advance on to round 2.
Yeah, Tony's just still having trouble when that car gets down track, starts trying to apply that clutch. Just can't seem to get it hooked up every single run. And you see Neil looking down track, trying to figure out what the heck's going on there. That was a tough break.
They look down the racetrack. Let's go to the top end ourselves with Tommy Johnson Jr.
Now, Brittany Force got her first round win. Number 3 qualifier. In first round, you got to take number 2 qualifier. No lane choice. It's hot today. Track conditions are tough. How hard was it to get down there?
We've been here for a few days, so we've had a lot of practice in the heat. I want to say today's probably the hottest of them all, but, it's the chip draw. Everyone's in the same boat as we are. We drew Doug Coletta, but this monster team, we got her down there, turned the win light on, and we have 2 more to go.
And you drew? Come on, you can say. Number 1.
Oh, number 1, yeah. I'm like, I don't know.
The chip draw, I know.
I'm like, I don't know who it was. Okay, yeah.
We'll find out soon.
She's like me. She don't care. She'll figure it out. I'm just racing the tree in the racetrack.
So for Brittany Force, she also drew a number 1 when we went into this first round of eliminations. And we wait to see who else draws a number 1, but we do know now that she will be in that first pair that comes out for the second round of eliminations. As we go back to the starting line, Antron Brown, number 1 on the side of the car, number 1 qualifier coming in to eliminations today after that stellar run that they were able to make in the 4th session of qualifying. He's up against Sean Reed, who is doing his burnout there on the right-hand side of the racetrack.
So Sean Reed starts to back up from his burnout. I talked with Antron Brown's crew chief, Brian Karate, before we started qualifying the other day, and we were talking about the win, how he won the championship last year, and Antron did in fantastic fashion on the last run of the season to get the championship. But Brian was telling me, he says, we were just out there kind of running these nice runs, not super fast, but going down the tracks. He liked going down these tricky racetracks, but he said he was getting a little bit of a heat out. He couldn't lay down a number. He said, but you know what? We were getting round wins. This is the way we approach it. We try to be consistent. And he says, every once in a while when I need to, I can throw out that big number. That's exactly what he did last night. But right now he's going back to his old book. Just get it down the racetrack and do it consistently.
Back it up just a little. Who's going in first? Antron Brown. 73, 76 for trouble. Sean Reed at 378. Number 6 out of 8 qualifiers getting to race in round number 2.
Well, that's a huge upset. Antron Brown was quite a ways down racetrack before he started spinning the tires. He was 216 at the 330 and 215 for Sean Reed. They're pretty close, and that's about the point I think I saw Antron start to spin the tires. Once you smoke the tires that hard and your competition's not doing that, you're not going to be able to catch them. And I'll tell you what, that right lane through the middle of the racetrack is showing up to be pretty good. They're getting some decent 8th mile speeds in these types of conditions. Brittany was a really good 8th mile speed on her run.
See Sean Reed getting out of the car. Down at the far end. Goodyear engineers down there to meet him, take a good look at everything, as well as members of the NHRA tech team. Again, this event being run to the current tech specifications, current rules package for the NHRA competitions, allowing these teams to run through all the parts and pieces that they need to run for the coming up season.
Yeah, Sean Reed, that was a good win. He started out the qualifying not too well, going up the starting line with no oil pressure and had to shut him off. So he was pretty upset that he didn't get that run in the first session because that was under the lights in good conditions. But he seems to have bounced back.
His crew chief, Rob Wendland, said, you know, one of my biggest jobs this year is just to give Sean a car that he knows that when he gets up to the starting line, he can be just as competitive as everybody else. And once Sean has that confidence, he'll be able to rise to the occasion as the driver behind the wheel, and you're seeing that relationship really come to fruition. Before we get to Funny Car, before we get down the racetrack with our last pair of dragsters, let's get back down to the top end with TJ.
Well, Sean Reed getting the biggest upset of first round, taking out the #1 qualifier, Antron Brown. Sean, this is a great way to start off season 2025.
Man, this is definitely starting a lot better than it did last year. And, you know, good friend of mine, Antron, we wouldn't even be here without Antron and that team. I'll tell you, they've helped us so much. But, you know, world champ. And, boy, I took off there and I actually just kept on leaning forward. And I'm like, okay, where you at, AB? And I'm like, oh, my God, you never came. I can't even believe it, man. Rob Wendland, Ryan, Tuna, all the guys, they work so hard, man. And, you know, we got the All-American automotive guys in the house today. And, man, let's go try to win another one.
Well, he's going to be first pair against Brittany Force next round.
Going to be a great race. We have one more pair, Top Fuel dragster, still to run. Will be two of the best levers in the history of Top Fuel. Sean Langdon there in the Coletta Air car. He was the #4 qualifier. Now this is interesting because he had lane choice over Justin Ashley, who's on the left-hand side of the racetrack. Sean and that team, led by Brian Husen, they chose to go here.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I mean, it's #4 and 5 qualifier here, and you talked about the reaction times. You know, these two guys are so good, we watch them in qualifying because they both practice. Some drivers don't, some drivers do. These two are always hitting the tree every time they go up there. And there's bragging rights. And Justin Ashley, I mean, he was just unbelievable all last year with, I mean, averaging 0.30 reaction times. And it seems like he had everybody covered for a couple hundreds during most of the season. But by the end of the season, all the good drivers like Antron and Sean were kind of closing that gap up.
33 to a 50, Justin Ashley at 394.
Wow.
Not going to have lane choice no matter who it is that he will race once we get to the second round.
Mike Green going back on, taking a look at it. I think he might have spun the tires and backpedaled it, and maybe that was the cause. It looked like it was mixing cylinders down track. But Justin Ashley once again 0.30 in the reaction time, 0.33 to an 0.50, which is no slouch. I mean, Sean, in a Top Fuel dragsters, that's a good light. But Justin Ashley, that kid is just unbelievable.
We heard Sean Reed say that he had also drawn the #1 chip, so we look back at who else has won here. Josh Hart and Justin Ashley will race in round 2.
Sean had trouble early, but look at Justin. Goes out there and starts just hazing the tires. And I don't know if he pedaled it. Right side of your screen, let's watch this closer. His 8th mile speed was down. I think it started spinning the tires and put a cylinder out. Just hazed him. But just when it didn't smoke him hard, but just hazed the tires enough to put a cylinder out, slow it down. He was only running 253 miles per hour at the 8th mile. That's why it slowed down to that 394. But that was good enough for the win based on Sean Langdon having his problems early.
Look at the fans that have filed in. to Bradenton Motorsports Park. Capacity crowd here to watch the Skag Power Equipment Pro Superstar Shootout. Such a tremendous event by the racers, for the racers, put on for the fans, even some VIP seating there right by the starting line. See Nitro Funny Cars at the ready for our first round of eliminations. Take a look at the matchups and who we will have out up against each other. It'll be Bobby Bodie. Chad Green will be our first pair. We have Ron Capps, qualified number 4, over Daniel Wilkerson, qualified at number 5. And then we have Jack Beckman and Matt Hagan, number 3 and number 2 qualifiers respectively, a big matchup. But then Bob Tasca and Austin Prock. Now, this one is interesting. Bob Tasca, the first of the drivers to go over 340 miles an hour. It was here last year, 341. Austin Prock, though, able to do it his own during the NHRA season in the finals. Both of these racers, both of these teams, certainly able to find some speed and some performance. But Austin Prock last night, number 1 qualifier, 379.
Yeah, 379.1. That's the quickest run to 1,000 foot by a funny car. And it's also the quickest run since they laid the headers back. It's only 379 run because Robert Height and Matt Hagan ran those 379 numbers with the headers laid back. Now what that does is helps the car accelerate down the racetrack. A little bit harder to drive, but boy, it definitely made a difference. But NHRA decided we're going to raise it up just a little bit because they're a little bit too hard to drive. I disagree with that. I hate that rule, to be honest with you. But Austin Prock did it with the headers, and I should say Jimmy and Thomas Prock did it with that tune-up with the headers up to run that 379.1. So you had the first 340 and the fastest run here, and the quickest run in funny car at Bradenton Motorsports.
Before we fire funny cars, let's get back down to the top end with Tommy Johnson.
Justin Ashley getting the final win of the round. And how nervous were you? I mean, the 2 best leavers in the class, you get out there and all of a sudden it starts spinning tires. How nervous did you get waiting for him to come around?
Yeah, it's one of those unique feelings, you know it, because you don't know where he is. I didn't know if he was up in smoke or he was out ahead. So, I mean, you know, I really try now, so you try and focus ahead, but peripherally you're kind of looking at the corner of your eye to see if he passed, and thankfully he didn't that time, but Sean's obviously got a great team. So listen, a win is a win. Obviously we're trying to run better, but excited to move on to round 2 for our whole Skag Power Equipment Toyota team. Awesome job to Mike, Tommy, and the whole group, and put some Mac tools to work, and we'll see you in a little bit.
He'll take on Josh Hart second round, and they'll go back and just to tune up for these track conditions.
See Tim Wilkerson looking on now, the crew chief full-time for his son Daniel Wilkerson for the Skag Power Equipment, his team. Daniel, of course, did the full season last year as well. But Mike, this was the interesting thing to me. All through last year, Tim was ready to where he would be able to get into the car should he ever, have the desire or the need to do so. This weekend, they pulled up into Bradenton Motorsports Park, and for the very first time, Tim Wilkerson did not bring his helmet. He did not bring his fire suit. He did not bring anything that would allow him to strap into that Nitro Funny car.
That's something, because Tim Wilkerson, when I knew him, loved to drive a fuel funny car, but I think he's got that point where he really, and I've seen a lot of other drivers do that, including my dad and Ed the Ace McCullough, to where they got to the point they loved driving the car, but by whatever reason they kind of got pushed into tuning race cars, and they eventually they had no desire to get back in it. They just wanted to make those cars run fast, and for Tim to have his son Daniel to be able to do the driving and doing the job that he's doing, he's got to be pretty proud, and I think he's got to be very happy just being in the position he is, just trying to figure out how to make that car fast.
See the first pair behind the water box there for funny cars, Bobby Bodie and Chad Green. Is Tim Wilkerson, I'm sure, telling fish stories up there at the starting line as well, getting ready to get going. But this is an interesting matchup, or an interesting running here for Bobby Bodie, for example. Did not come here to test. Del Worsham is the tuner on this car. He's the owner on this car. This is Del Worsham's team. Decided, let's try something. They were late to get here, went in for the qualifying sessions, and doesn't really know what his full season plans are going to be yet, but neither does Bobby Bodie. He's 23 years old, the son of Bob Bodie, second generation funny car driver, still a student at Arizona State. And Del Worsham said, let's give the kid a chance. Let's see what he can do. We'll make some runs here together, and we'll just see where it goes. And Bobby Bodie's got career best numbers. He was able to go a 388 in the fourth session of qualifying.
know, and he runs a career best 388, and that only gets him on the bump spot. I know it's an 8-car show, but that's still pretty quick feel from a 379 to a 388 bump. And Chad Green, he's number 7, based on that chip draw, number 7, 8, going to race in the first round. Chad's slightly better than him with a 387, so this is a good matchup on paper. But you know, the interesting thing about Bobby Bode, he came out and ran well the first run. They sat out one session because one of the hot sessions, but then they came back and they ran a 388 later. So Del Worsham knows how to do this. I mean, he's been doing this for a long time, and he's a very good tuner, very good driver too. He can do anything on one of these fuel funny cars. So Chad Green, he's probably got his work cut out for him. Bobby Bode, he seems pretty like a cool kid. He's got some laps now. He's been doing this for a couple years, and but he hadn't driven for Del Worsham. Just start doing that. Might be a totally different beast.
Chad Green, a little more experience behind the wheel. Let's see who can get it done here. Chad Green first off the line,
Bobby got
and
close to the
able
wall.
to
Yep.
get to the stripe. A 399 for Chad Green. Bobby had to back out of it.
Yeah, Bobby was getting there over to the wall pretty darn close. 407, slowing to 269. Chad Green had the advantage off of the starting line, but 60 feet, Bobby had pretty much made that up and was ahead at he's pretty much close at 330 foot, but car started to drift to the left. Take another look at it. Chad hits the throttle. Bobby's right in the middle of the racetrack. Then you see the thing start to move over towards the side. When it did, it started spinning the tires. Got a little close to the wall. Watch the right side of your screen. I don't think he hit it. I don't think he got that. Yeah, and he gave it another little puddle. He did not hit the wall, but he got pretty close, but not too bad.
Moved over, got out of it. Chad Green advancing on to round number 2. See the 9 on the side of that funny car. He was able to get a win last year in competition, also a winner in Pro Mod. Getting more and more experience. See Elin there at the top end. That orange Skag bag, that's what the bag that holds the chips. That's what's going to determine the fate for round number 2.
So that's what that bag is.
He guards it close. Tommy Johnson Jr. down there as well, taking a look at the car as everybody gets set and ready. Back to the starting line. They're on the right-hand side of the racetrack, left side of your picture. Daniel Wilkerson is the number 5 qualifier. Other side of the racetrack, Ron Capps. Did not qualify for this event last year. Comes into today as the number 4 qualifier. Not qualifying last year, that one hurt him. His crew chief, Dean Antonelli, Guido, but they were building a program. They trusted the process, continued to go through the season, and continue to build and learn, and you can see where they are now 1 year later. Both cars, burnouts complete. Let's get back down to the top end with TJ.
Chad Green getting the first round win. It's definitely not nighttime conditions out there. It looked like you had your hands full on the top end, maybe spin the tires a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's definitely different. It's a totally different day. Nice warm day out today. We're not sad about that. I mean, I'm sure maybe somebody might go in the 80s out here today, but for us, that was a good run to start off in the heat, and just happy to be here. That's our first round of the season, 2025. Good to start off with the win. Thank you.
Good to start off with a win. Lots of confidence. They'll be able to carry, get ready, back in the pit area, find out who they're going to race.
I'll tell you, Daniel Wilkerson, between testing and qualifying, he's had about a full season, you know, with the one car losing the chute and going into the sand, bringing the other one out. Run some 380s, struggling to get down the racetrack. It's been really up and down up to this point. He's hoping right now it's going to go right up to the to run the big number and get the win.
Tim back in the pit area said if it was easy, it wouldn't be nearly as fun, was it? We got to keep it exciting out here. Teams have stepped away. Up to the drivers. Identical reaction times, matching 87s. The finish stripe, though, it is Ron Capps, an 86, but that 89 run by Daniel Wilkerson with the hot racetrack, not too bad either.
No, that was very good, but you notice the cars are really moving around down track. You know, getting off, both of them were kind of getting a little bit close to the wall, but Ron Capps was able to get to the finish line first with that 386 to a 389 based on that identical reaction time. The quicker time obviously won. I did the math.
You said you were going to be rusty.
Take another look at it. Both cars dead even, stuck in the middle, and then all of a sudden, Daniel starts drifting towards the wall. Capps did a little bit less of a drift, but still moved over there, but got the win. Nice run.
Look back down to the starting line. Our next pair, left-hand lane, Matt Hagan. It's the number 2 qualifier. Jack Beckman on the other side of the racetrack. Finished second in the championship point standings last season to his teammate Austin Prock. Came in as the number 3 qualifier. This is a big matchup when you consider that number 2 and number 3 having to face off in round 1.
That's the thing with the chip draw. I mean, Jack Beckman's had a tremendous race car all through qualifying, and yet that he has to come up against Matt Hagan. That car's been very consistent. Just usually he's up against his teammate Austin, and he's always just a little bit behind.
Was watching as all of the drivers pulled their chips last night after the final session of qualifying to find out who they would face off against in this first round. And Jack Beckman, once he realized that it was Matt Hagan in round 1, the first thing he said was, "Are you kidding me?" Did not want to have to go up against Matt Hagan, the 4-time Funny Car champion, here in round number 1.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough draw anytime. And think about that, because Jack's got a very good race car this weekend. I mean, or this whole week, actually. That thing's just been going down the track, making some really nice runs. But Matt Hagan, you know, out-qualified him, so obviously he made his best run was better than Jack's best run. So that's just luck of the draw.
For Jack Beckman, that run that he made in the 4th session of qualifying, they went back and looked at the data, and on the G meter it showed that from 200 to 500 feet, it pulled 5.5 Gs. He said, "I have never been behind the wheel of a race car that pulled those kinds of numbers." And for him, it gave him the confidence and the energy to come into today. So we'll see what kind of run they can put on here from Matt Hagan. Other side, he's got his new crew chief here this weekend. Let's see what they can do.
Good race.
A great race. Jack Beckman able to take home that win light of 387 to Matt's 393.
Matt had the advantage off the starting line by 200ths of a second, and then Fast Jack just kind of kept his cool, kept it in the middle of the racetrack, and was able to just drive around on the other end. That 387 to beat the 393. Good old drag race there.
Let's get down to the top end. Here from Ron Capps.
Ron Capps getting that first round win. That was a race that was probably closer than you knew inside the car. A pretty good run for your first round at 86.
You know as well as anybody, we're so far back in these, especially a super body, you feel like you're in the back seat of the trunk of a normal car. So you never know. And Tim Wilkerson, you can't count him out. He's wilked you and I in the past many times. So it hiked the front end up and threw me back. And I thought, man, this track I know is warm right now. Will it hold? And old Guido did his magic. So Napa guys, good job. This is so much fun because you don't know what you're going to do next. You got to pick a chip, and then you got to wait and see, and you know who you're running. I got to ask you what's going on, which is rare because you're in my shoes.
And you picked number
1.
No, 2.
Oh, I did pick 2.
Yeah, Chad Green.
Oh, okay. Then I see. I don't even know.
Second pair.
Okay, good to know.
Be up there and be ready.
So now we know that Chad Green and Ron Capps will be the second pair out
always a good number.
once we get to round 2 of Funny Car competition, but we still have one more pair to go here in the first round of elimination, and this is the matchup everyone has been talking about. Austin Prock, number 1 qualifier there, left-hand lane, dominated qualifying, pulls the chip, learning that he will face off against Bob Tasco. both of these drivers, only ones to go, 341 miles an hour behind the wheel of a funny car. These teams can make some power. Talked about the team behind Austin Prock, his dad Jimmy Prock making the tuning decisions along with his brother Tom Prock. But in the Bob Taska camp, he has Aaron Brooks, Todd Okahara, a lot of experience there with those two as well. But this weekend they also have 2 new crew members that are working on that car for the first time. Employment started just a week ago, so learning as they go through the motions here. Nothing quite like that. It is baptism by nitro, as they say. Some of them very new to this sport, getting their first taste of it here this weekend, but that team was able to qualify for the field of 8, and now they get to see what they can do up against the #1 qualifier.
Yeah, and a lot of people take crew members for granted, but you know, if you don't do your job, you know, the car's not going to win. Everybody has to do their job on that race car. They're all very important, so getting new crew members is a big deal. But this is a big matchup. These are 2 very powerful cars. Bob Task is struggling a little bit so far in testing and qualifying, but he's starting to get it together. Austin Prock, what can you say? He's the best right now.
He was away first, drove down the track a 387.6 for Austin Prock. Jack Beckman was able to outrun him by just a bit. Ron Capps as well. So it's a good solid run, but not the best of the session, and this is the first time we've seen that this weekend.
I know. I was expecting a little bit more because, like you said, every session he's been the best, and they softened her up a little bit. They, 283 miles per hour, the 8th mile. I've always said I like looking at that 8th mile speed because that tells you how much of that clutch application and power they're pushing through the middle of the racetrack. And it also gives you a good indication how the middle of that racetrack is. Capps ended up with the top speed in the 8th mile. He went 286, and I would have bet money before the session started that Austin Prock would have had that number.
Good thing you didn't. Let's get down to the top end with TJ.
Well, Jack Beckman went from the Flo booth last year to a first-round win this year, Jack. 387, nice run.
Yeah, on that right lane in the heat, I think that's great. There might be a little bit more out there, but we got everything that we needed. We're not going to have lane choice, but we didn't then either. And our goal is to race the Cornwall car, and we're talking, you never get ahead of yourself, right? But us on opposite sides of the ladder could stack this thing up to be a fun Saturday.
Well, this chip draw, it's confusing to the drivers, confusing to the announcers. I used to be a driver. He's actually going to race Ron Capps' first pair, not Jack Green and Ron Capps.
Oh, right on. All right, so now we've got it figured out, we think.
I mean, I'm not the only one confused.
They made a good run. Yeah, you guys made a great run.
We will get this all squared away. It sounds like Jack Beckman,
lane choice,
Ron Capps.
I had it ruled in like 500.
Yeah.
I love hearing the behind-the-scenes talk also. All the drivers get out of the cars at the top end and talking about their numbers.
So Austin said he had it rolled in about 500. What he's talking about, when the stage light came in, he rolls that car a little bit further in. So what happens is he doesn't have, when he hits the throttle, he doesn't have as far to go to break the beam. That gives you better reaction time, but it takes time off your elapsed time.
All right, well, this is something that you definitely don't see every day. You had to qualify for the field of 8 to get in. If you did not qualify for the field of 8, stick around here on race day. And we are sending Doug Foley right there in that Top Fuel dragster down the racetrack alongside J.R. Todd in the Nitro Funny Car.
Top Fuel versus Funny Car. You know, JR talked to his dad this morning, and his dad said JR was surprised because he didn't get in the show, and they really struggled to get the car down the track. Got in on the last session, but then got bumped out by Bob Taska at the last minute, basically. But he said, JR, he says he wasn't disappointed. He said it was kind of unusual, and I said, yeah, you know, I mean, at age and experience, that move with getting Dickie Venables over there, I think he just realizes it's going to come together. Not to worry, it's a long season. I said, well, like when we were kids and just starting out, we thought we had to do everything like right now. We just had to get out there. So I thought that was pretty cool to hear that from his dad.
Yeah, just having to stay patient. There is a look at the car, J.R. Todd. You mentioned Dickie Venables. coming over to this organization this season, going up to the tuning lounge alongside John Oberhofer, and together they are going to get this figured out. You just have to trust the process, and it's all about making these runs. Yes, this is for the fans. Yes, this is entertainment. Yes, this is exciting, but they're going to be able to take this knowledge into the rest of the season and be able to learn from it as well.
Yeah, now there's going to be a 1500ths of a second advantage on the tree. The tree's going to come on for JR just 1500ths of a second quicker. Saw that with the launch there. Doug wasn't late. See JR lift a little bit early.
But how cool to see a funny car and a dragster go down side by side.
It was, you know, and Doug Foley 113 light. It's hard to, I tell you, it's hard because JR gets the light first. You hear that car go, and sometimes it throws you off. And but still, that was a good race. I mean, good show for the fans. They're basically both out here just testing things to try to get things to keep working well. And both cars went down the track. JR shut her off just a tad before the finish line. That might have been a planned deal, just to go back and check some parts.
The fans in the stands, I'm looking out the window of the tower right now. Everybody on their feet watching that exciting side-by-side race. Let's get back down to the top end with TJ.
Austin Prock, first round win, 387. But it's the first time in a long time somebody outran you that round.
Yeah, Caps made an impressive run. Guido, he had that thing dialed in. My crew chiefs were giving him kudos when they saw that 86 go up over the radio. So, yeah, that was a great run. You know, it's a little bit hotter, a little bit greasier, and we definitely didn't want to get it away. But for backing her way down and still run 87, that says a lot about this Proc Rocket.
Proc Rocket. So impressive watching what Austin Proc has been able to develop into over the last couple of seasons. Remember, John Forrest gave him the opportunity first behind the wheel of a Top Fuel dragster to be a dragster teammate alongside Brittany Force. And they were trying to learn as much as they could about dragster racing, and Austin then stepped out of the car. He lost that ride, lost the sponsorship, went back to being a crew member, worked and worked and worked until they could get the money together to get him back behind the wheel of a car, and comes out. His very first race was here as a Nitro Funny Car driver, was able to win the Skag Power Equipment Pro Superstar Shootout for the first time, and then turn it in to a Funny Car Championship.